Okay, so you may be wondering why it's a diversity, equity, inclusion, and true male people are here, talking about beyond the binary, right? So the wonderful thing is about we are male allies, both of us, and that's what is the critical one to have that real diversity, inclusion, and equity, right? So I myself already been introduced, so I have been working on this banking and financial services for long, and as you know, one of the industry that has adopted is banking and financial services, this diversity and inclusion and equity as well. So I have been seeing this for last almost 15 to 17 years. As I saw first time in the UK, I was sharing with Niren on my experiences, first time when I went to UK and seen there, I got shocked and I got used to, and now I think I'm happy to see that in India and in Bangalore, it's like a huge success, this space, right, where we are talking about. So without further ado, I would like to start with, the introduction around what is this whole about? We are talking about diversity, equity and inclusion. Is it a buzzword, or is it like how everyone is talking about this today? Is it because of the competition, or is it because of our customers are doing it? What are your views on that? Why it is so prevalent in this time?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm very pleased to be here, and I hope we have a great session. And Dr. Deepak, thanks for your questions, and I look forward to a good conversations with you. First of all, am I audible over here? Okay. So I think a great question. I mean, of course, we are in this session in Bangalore in one of the premier hotels, so it's of course a topic which is highly prevalent and being discussed, and not only now, but of course for quite last number of years also. I think we have made some great strides in this area, in the area of DE&I, and gradually we have realized that there's strong business sense in doing that. I mean, first of all, it's the right thing to do. I think we must establish it as part of a culture build-up, that it's the right thing to do, and that percolates through the culture in the organization. And in Accenture, we do that quite a lot. Like, it's really ingrained in the way we operate in all processes and all streams. Some of the research which we have done, like in some of the Accenture research which we have done, says that between a more inclusive organization and a lesser inclusive organization, there is a difference in innovation mindset by almost 6 times between a more inclusive versus a less inclusive organization. And as you bridge that gap, you'll be able to take the benefit of that innovation journey. The other thing, of course, is that another research shows that between these two sets of organization, between the top 20% more inclusive and the bottom 20% inclusive, and they've done some econometric models around it, there is going to be a 33% increase in your net profits as you move in the inclusion journey. So I think there is strong business sense for doing that, but what I want to emphasize is just not business. It's culturally and is the right thing to do, and that's a journey which we should be on this.
Okay, thanks, Niren. I think you mentioned some stats. I'm also a statistician, so I would love to see some numbers. So obviously, I think we are talking about diversity in the binary sense, like gender. I think largely you hear about gender diversities in most of the MNCs and organizations. So when you look at the other dimensions, like persons with disabilities, right? Disability is a big one, and it's like generally talked about physical disabilities, but we have so much into the other dimensions like mental health issues and a lot of in the recent past. And then you have LGBTQs. That's a big one, I think, is again more spoken now. And then you also have other dimensions, people like, on the beyond the women, it's like other types like economic weaker sections and different backgrounds they're coming from. And another interesting dimension is the geolocation, like people coming from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. Like, how do we look at the stats suggest that most of these other dimensions are kind of ignored largely. We are focused around, I would say, mostly people are trying to put targets for the gender diversity, which is like 50-50, something like that, right? But at all levels. But when it comes to the other stats, we don't see that much, right? Particularly disabilities is like, it's a huge 15% population of the world population is people with disabilities, and out of that 80% are unemployed. So that's a huge number, to talk about. How, what are your views and what you guys are doing in terms of, this area?
Yeah, wonderful question. But what I'll say one thing that I think everyone is aware of it right now. So it's your maturity journey, where you are as an organization, as an individual, as a leader. So when we started on the journey, of course, we have covered almost the entire spectrum of it, and I'll just tell you how we went about doing it. The way I see Dr. Deepak happening is, one is increasing the spectrum. Correct. Right? Of course, you said gender is there. So in 2020, our CHRO, Ellen Shook, made an announcement that we will be 50-50 by 2025. And in 2024, we are 49.5, and of course, we will hit 50-50 ratio by early 2025. So we are on target over there. But what I want to say is, for example, you spoke of gender, right? But if you expand that, and then you do, if you add backward area to it, it takes a whole, it goes much deeper. So you take the same thing, but you add a factor to it. For example, we run programs for women in the most lower GDP states in India. So, so not only that, but we go ahead and do that. But I want to talk more because, so then, for example, we started with the Returning Mothers program. And I want to talk more about it, because we all know that a lot of our women colleagues drop off at certain stage of the career because of life reasons, and we have this Returning Mother program, and a lot of other organizations also have it. But what we do is, when someone goes on leave, on a long leave, we actually hold that position. We don't give away the position to anyone else, so that when the person comes back, their position is still there for that person. So that's the commitment we make to this. Okay. But when you start with a Returning Mothers program, and then you expand it into a caregivers program. So it's not only, of course, Returning Mothers is a large part of the caregivers program, but then you get into, like we have a lot of colleagues who take care of their elderly parents, or they may have brothers, sisters who have special needs and who need to be taken care of. So we have to recognize those people, because we need to help them to support their family members. So we have now expanded the Returning Mothers program to call it a caregivers program and make it broader. So that's another example of, you start there and you make it broader. Recently, of course, LGBTIQ plus program we have been running. Not only program, it's part of our DNA now. We have almost 28,000 allyship members, and it's part and parcel of what we do. And recently we have also moved into neuroscience. That's a little bit of a complex area to get into, because it needs a lot of enablement on the floor and everywhere. But this year we have started on the neuroscience. So I think you have to expand on this spectrum. And then also you have to enrich each of the spectrum and each of the areas, and make it more diverse, more meaningful, go into areas we have not gone before. But I want to say one thing, it is not that anyone doesn't want to do it, it's just a part of the maturity journey, and I'm sure organizations will get into it and keep on doing it more and more. So I think it's a journey thing, Dr. Deepak.
Thank you, Niren.
On this over here.
And one thing I picked on, you talked about neuroscience and neuro area. So that is my research area. Like, I saw your program, Thriving Mind, right? It's a program. Can you talk a little more about it? Like, particularly, a lot of people talk about stress, at workplace, and anxiety, depression. This is becoming like a big trend. My research area is mental health. So it's very close to me, right, in terms of that area. So if you can, I think I see that you're already doing some program on Thriving Mind. If you can elaborate on that. Yeah.
So for everyone, Dr. Deepak's PhD research is on mental health, right?
Thank you.
And I knew this question was coming. So Thrive, we work with Thrive Global, and you would have heard of Thrive Global, right? Globally, it works globally. and I can talk about it. The aim is to inculcate behavior change to take care of mental wellness, managing stress, and things like that. So we have rolled it out to all our employees across the globe. It suggests small behavior changes which can give you, to use the word, lesser stress, probably one example. I mean, simple things like, don't look at your phone before going to sleep, or keep your phone in some other room. So simple things like that, but behavior hacks which gives you much more better stress management skills. So that's what we do with Thrive Global.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So I think you talked about a lot of these programs. So how do you recommend or suggest, how do we track these, right? Because, and before even tracking, how do you set the goals? Is there a way that, based on your past experience currently or previously, how do we set those targets? And then once you set the targets, how do we track those? Is there a easy way, or is it very difficult? Because always monitoring and tracking and sharing is very difficult. Setting is easy.
Yeah. So I get a lot of these targets because I'm talent supply chain, and so what I'll say is, I won't call it targets, but there is a goalpost which needs to be defined, and that is the job of the leadership, to take those bold decisions and set those goalposts. Previously, I would say when we started, it was a new thing for us, but now it's part of what we do. So I'm aware that as a talent supply chain lead, this is one of the core areas in which I need to work on. But if you look at what are the areas, some of the areas which we track on, right? So we have basically we look at it in 3 areas. One is every year we look at creating something. So we have not done something before. Right. We'll create something new this year. For example, the neuroscience program we spoke of, it's called Udan, and we started this year. So there we have a create stack. For example, the GDP backward state, that's another thing which we created. So that's create. And then we have accelerate stream, where we say we are already on the journey, but we want to accelerate. So like the 50-50 for what we have announced, right? We want to accelerate and reach higher. Or these are already existing, which we want to now do better and do it more. You spoke of PWD program. So we want to accelerate that. We want to do more of that. We have been running it, but we want to increase the numbers. So we get those numbers, and we then move it internally and then enable it. And then sustain. What we have already done, we want to keep on sustaining. For example, in Thrive Global, we have done it for X number of years, but we want to sustain it for this year. So that's how we structure the program for each year. In terms of metrics, of course, there are different kind of metrics. One of the metrics is just pure, to what extent, it is there. For example, percentage of our employees who are PWD, right? So that is a reach which has happened. The second one is, of course, on the hiring front, right? Because that's a key way in which you're taking into the organization. So you have hiring and staffing targets which comes in. The third one is more interesting, which is around, for example, if you have training programs, how many of your diversity groups are using those training programs? Correct. So the second and fourth I want to just touch on a little bit, which is around in the organization ecosystem, how much we are able to engage them. For example, if you have a job board, right? We have hired PWDs and neuroscience into this. But if you have a job board, how many of them are applying in those job boards, right? So in your ecosystem, whether you have made it good enough for them to participate as an employee in that journey. So I think that becomes very important. So gradually we're moving into that to see, how we make it very natural for all of us, included, to operate in that zone.
Okay, I'll change slightly the topic. Like you heard the buzzword Gen AI, right? Everyone in the room aware of AI and Gen AI, I believe, right? So how is Gen AI is helping in this diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and how you are using it, right? Have you seen it using yourself, or how you see that it will be used? Because it's a big buzzword at the moment.
It is a buzzword, and I think it's an exciting buzzword. I lead a lot of the GenAI projects, which is being deployed globally in my space. For example, I think it's a very exciting phase. I was hearing, I've heard a lot of the discussions on it. For example, there are two areas we have gone live in, right? For example, we use GenAI to create job descriptions for all our roles. So all job descriptions, right? Job descriptions is what goes into all your demands, right? You see it on the website or hiring portals. It's mostly written manually, and there's a lot of variation in that. It can be 2 lines, it can be 50 lines, it can be written beautifully, it can be written, of course, you can do a QC check, but at our scale, right, where, of 300,000 people in India or 7,500 globally, it's very difficult to do all that. So we have built a GenAI-enabled JD creation. Okay, now there are caveats to it, right? When you do something like that, there is a thing of whether it will pull in bias. Because basically what the GPT is doing, we have used GPT 3.5 turbo version. What the GPT is doing is getting into the internet, pulling it up, using prompts to shape the job description. What is important here is responsible AI, which we call as RAI. I think each of the organizations need to have a very strong RAI practice to ensure that the prompts which are being built and the data, and you're a data expert yourself, the prompts which are being built and the data which is being pulled is tested properly, rigorously before being deployed. So I think a strong RAI practice is a very, very important prerequisite before we deploy any GenAI solution. Similarly, we have enabled GenAI solution in performance achievement, and there are a lot of other areas we are doing it. I think GenAI, we are also looking at in human resource as a great means of personalizing and customizing your interface. Okay. Because it has the ability to pull in a lot of unstructured data, structured data, and provide that. So I think we'll see a lot of exciting journey on that, and it's really going to shake up the world. That's my belief. Yeah. But yeah, it's open for debate right now.
No, I think I agree, because the challenge we have is it's a garbage in, garbage out concept. I think everyone knows who are associated with data, right? So I think that's where the concern is, like the biases and how we discover or uncover the biases, hidden biases. Particularly, we are talking about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Yeah. This is already, people have their own biases even before GenAI, right? Even the human HR, just sharing my experience on that particular one, right? When people talk about interview panels and things like that, even when selecting the CVs, right, by the screening, right, automated screening and all of that. So I think it's a great area. It is going to boost the efficiencies, but at the same time, it has a other side of it, which you mentioned, the responsible AI, and you need to have a proper governance and understood the biases and all of that. Then I think it can give a booster. Otherwise, it is going to even increase the problem. For particularly this section, we are talking about diversity and inclusion, because it automatically, simple example is, gap, right, is a very basic example people give in the CVs. If you have gaps, it will drop, right? Even if you advance algorithm, you put it like, gap is like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. However you do, still I think it will drop in the filtering process. So this is one, I think, interesting development we have to see how. And second, I think you talked about the practices internally. I think the training is an interesting one.
Yeah.
The personalized, we are talking about hyper-personalization in everywhere. Is a banking, retail, and all the places I think we talk about using the AI and hyper-personalization. I think why can't we use that for the training? I think that's a good thing. I think you mentioned AI and GenAI can be used for the personalized training particular to that particular group of individuals, or even the particular individual. So that would be a good one.
Yeah.
So coming to the other side of the diversity inclusion, we talked about a lot about the how you practice. So how do you see the trends in India particularly, and also in globally, how it's going to shape? What is the future look like for this diversity, equity, and inclusion? And we talked about all the other dimensions. How you see? Are there any recommendations from you as a practitioner? What are the trends that we will see in the coming months and years?
I think we need to do much more work on this. We have just scratched the surface, so work has just begun, I would say. We have to do more work, and we have to be more, continue to stay more and more focused, and because the benefits is there for all to see. So I think we just have to continue to do more on this, is what I would say.
Okay. Thank you so much, Niren. It's a pleasure talking to you and getting more insights from you as a practitioner. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Any questions?
Thank you so much. Yeah, we can take maybe 1 or 2 questions.
I think we had a very good discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
No questions is good news. No news is good news.
Yes, I think
This is
that
what we
was a
say
great
generally. Either they understood fully or they just ignored everything. So one side to the other side.
No, I'm sure we've all understood very well. So thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you so much, Niren, for that wonderful chat. Can we have a round of applause for the wonderful chat?
Thank you.